The Grand Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Chenwei stepped forward, her boots echoing against the crystalline floor. Around her, representatives from 47 species watched with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed disdain. The Vexthari delegation clicked their mandibles in irritation, while the Korath observers dimmed their bioluminescent patterns, a sign of skepticism. "The human wishes to inspect the Heartstone?" High Arbiter Zalmoth's voice resonated through translation matrices embedded in every delegate's neural interface. The ancient Kelvari regarded Chen with 3 amber eyes, each one reflecting millennia of accumulated knowledge. "This is unprecedented." Chen maintained her composure despite the weight of countless gazes. Humanity had only joined the Galactic Consortium 15 cycles ago, newcomers by cosmic standards. The other species had been exploring the stars for thousands, sometimes millions of years. To them, humans were children playing at civilization. "With respect, High Arbiter," Chen replied, her words measured and deliberate, "humanity has been studying the energy signatures emanating from the Heartstone for 6 months. Our scientists believe they've detected patterns. The word dripped with condescension from Counselor Thexvar, the Korath military commander. His crystalline exoskeleton refracted light into harsh angles. "The Heartstone has been analyzed by every major civilization for 10,000 cycles. What could a species that only discovered faster than light traveled 200 years ago possibly detect that we have not?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Chen felt the familiar burn of frustration but pushed it down. This was exactly the reception she'd expected. The Heartstone sat at the chamber's center, suspended in a containment field that hummed with barely restrained power. It was a perfect sphere, roughly a meter in diameter, its surface shifting through colors that shouldn't exist, shades that seemed to exist between the visible spectrum. Every civilization had tried to unlock its secrets. Every civilization had failed. It had been discovered in the ruins of the progenitors, the mythical first civilization that supposedly seeded life across the galaxy. The Heartstone was their greatest mystery, a device of unimaginable power that refused to activate, refused to acknowledge any attempt at interface. It simply existed, beautiful and inert, a reminder of knowledge lost to time. "I'm not claiming to know more than the Council," Chen said carefully. "But humanity approaches problems differently. We're stubborn. We don't accept that something is impossible just because it's always been impossible." Zalmoth's third eye focused on her with unsettling intensity. "You may approach, but know this, Ambassador. The Heartstone has killed before. Those who touched it with impure intent were consumed instantly, their consciousness scattered across dimensions we cannot perceive. If you fail, there will be no rescue, no recovery." Chen nodded. She'd read the reports. 37 beings across galactic history had attempted physical contact. 37 had been erased from existence. But her team's analysis showed something the others had missed. The Heartstone responded to intention, yes, but also to something else. Something the other species lacked. She approached the containment field. A technician deactivated it with visible reluctance, and suddenly nothing stood between Chen and the artifact except 3 meters of charged air. The Heartstone seemed to pulse as she drew near, though perhaps that was her imagination. Chen could feel her heartbeat in her throat, could hear blood rushing in her ears. Every instinct screamed at her to stop, to reconsider. But humanity hadn't reached the stars by listening to fear. She thought of Earth, of the blue marble hanging in space, so fragile and yet so resilient. She thought of the millions who died in the resource wars before humanity finally learned to look upward instead of inward. She thought of her grandmother, who'd told her stories of the first Mars colony, of pioneers who'd risked everything for a dream of something more. Chen reached out and touched the Heartstone. Reality fractured. She was everywhere and nowhere. She could see the birth of stars and the heat death of the universe. She witnessed civilizations rise and fall like waves on an infinite shore. And through it all, she felt the presence of the progenitors, not as individuals but as an idea, a test. They had left the Heartstone as a key, yes, but also as a judgment. Every species that had touched it had approached with greed, with desire for power, with ambition to dominate. The Heartstone rejected them all because they sought to possess it. Humanity was different, not because they were special, not because they were chosen, but because humanity alone among the Council species had touched the stars out of desperation rather than destiny. They'd been forced to unite or die. They'd learned, painfully and slowly, that survival meant cooperation. That strength came from diversity, not dominance. Chen didn't try to control the Heartstone. She simply acknowledged it, respected it, asked the memory of the progenitors what humanity could do to prove worthy. The answer came not in words but in understanding. When Chen opened her eyes, she was back in the Grand Council chamber. The Heartstone now pulsed with gentle blue light, and data was streaming through every terminal in the facility. Technology, knowledge, the collected wisdom of the progenitors, freely given. Zelmuth rose from her seat, all three eyes wide. Impossible. How did you— We didn't try to master it, Chen said softly, watching the wonder dawn on faces across the chamber. We just asked if we could help. The Heartstone blazed brighter, and its voice, if it could be called a voice, resonated through every mind present. The humans understand. They have earned the right to shepherd the next age. Let all who would survive what comes learn from their example. In that moment, everything changed. Humanity, the youngest and weakest species in the consortium, had been chosen not to rule but to guide, not because they were superior, but because they alone remembered what it meant to be vulnerable, and the galaxy would never be the same.